Okay, we have a little bit more than half of our attendees so far participating. But to be respectful of everybody's time, we'll go ahead and get started today. Welcome to our November NACE Connect with Corrective Asphalt Materials. Before we start today's presentation, just a couple housekeeping items to make sure everyone has a good experience on today's webinar. First, we've got everybody's phones are on mute to cut down on background noise and ensure everyone can hear the presentation. You may want to choose to turn your camera or video feed off just to give yourselves a little better bandwidth. We will upload the PDF certificates within 10 days into the new member portal. So after you've attended today's webinar, you'll have that certificate for continuing education. Our webinar is going to be 1 hour today. That does include a Q&A portion when the presentation's over. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to either use the Q&A feature or put your questions in the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll go through those accordingly. And at that time, you can also just raise your hand if you want to do a question verbally instead. I'm Jen Bochelle. I handle marketing and membership services for NACE, and that includes working with our corporate members to bring professional opportunity and development hours to all of you throughout the year with our NACE Connect webinars. Today's webinar, Solutions for Long-Term Pavement Performance, is brought to you by the team of Corrective Asphalt Materials. They were our new platinum member in 2024. So to kick off the presentation, we will turn it over to Jeremy Huckabee to introduce his team and kick us off. Jeremy?
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for investing time with us. We definitely appreciate it. As Jen mentioned, my name is Jeremy Huckabee. I'm with Corrective Asphalt Materials. I'm joined this afternoon by several people, including our entire sales team at Corrective Asphalt Materials, Rachel Lane, Colleen West, Logan Sanders, Walter Crosby, who's our sales manager. And we're also joined by Darwin Dahlgren with Good Point Technologies. He'll be giving us some practical applications for pavement preservation later on in the presentation. My background has been in infrastructure now for almost 10 years. I've worked in a variety of different roles, mainly in the protective coating sector for water and wastewater. Now I'm on the road side. Love being in the infrastructure world, and a big thank you to all you out there who do the work day in and day out. Many times it's a thankless job, and much appreciation for the work that you do to keep our vital infrastructure running. Our company, Corrective Asphalt Materials, has been around since 1980. Our focus has been on helping cities and counties across multiple states extend the life of one of their most critical assets, their roads. The purpose of today's presentation, what are we trying to get out of this? We're trying to help you to be able to make a decision about including preservation as part of your asset management toolbox for your roadways. What are we going to talk about when it comes to this presentation? We talk about preservation. We'll talk about a number of different things, including strategies for asset management. We'll talk about the real world perspective when it comes to Maltene Replacement Technology and what that looks like. We'll also have some real world examples from our guest, Darwin Dahlgren, talking about how you can practically implement some strategies to get more life out of your roads and prioritize your budget to maximize your return on investment. And then we'll wrap up with some next steps, some things we can consider as far as action steps go, and then obviously take your questions. As Jen mentioned, please feel free to put questions as you think of them in the chat. We'll collect those and we will make sure that we address them at the end of the presentation. Again, thanks for investing time with us. We appreciate it. So where are we currently when it comes to road infrastructure? You've got two different pictures here. You've got one road that looks like it's pretty new, and then you've got one that looks like it's got some age on it for sure. But these two roads have something in common. They both have the same challenges. We think about the picture of the newer road on the left-hand side of the screen. And we think, hey, it's been paved, everybody wins, the mayor gets reelected, everybody's happy, right? But the problem is the deterioration process has already started, even with the new road. With so many different people out there today, right? We have people across a myriad of locations, but we all share some common challenges just like these roads do. And that is that roads are not lasting as long as they used to. And the cost of paving, the cost of maintaining roads continues to skyrocket. So we've got those challenges going on. And I just encourage you, take a field trip out to some of your roads, and really get up close and personal and look at them. You know, many times we pave a road, we spend all this money and do a project, and we think everything's great, but we don't take time to really stop and dig in and see what's really going on at the surface level. Um, you know, in terms of other challenges and what we face today, what's currently going on, you know, I mentioned that roads are not lasting as long as they used to. And many people will say, well, why is that? Well, there's a couple of different factors going on. You know, number one, the refining process when it comes to the oil industry has gotten so much better. And that's a positive for so many aspects of our society, but it's a negative for us in the asphalt world because so much of those quality liquids that went into roads 20, 30 years ago, that quality is not there anymore. So that's causing our roads to suffer. And then compound that with the fact that so much recycled content is now used in asphalt mixes, and when those mixes are installed in our roadways. So you have those two factors really working against you when you pave a road. And so the process of deterioration begins very quickly. So what are some other problems? What are some that we're up against, you know, when it comes to road infrastructure? Now, I talk with a lot of civil engineers. I talk with a lot of county engineers, a lot of public works directors, and they all have some common challenges that they share. But I was talking with one a few weeks ago, and you know, he shared with me. He said, you know, Jeremy, used to we would pave upwards of 10 miles in a year. You know, to take care of our road maintenance. And we had the budget, we had everything in place to do that. And now we can barely get to 5. You know, we're half of what we used to be. And you think about that in the context of what I just shared with you, right? That it's costing more to take care of roads and they're not lasting as long. So we quickly get into this cycle that we can't get out of, right? Everybody hears worse first, right? It's a mentality that's really, it's hard to break out of. It's a long-standing approach to infrastructure management. And it's a hard thing to overcome, especially when you talk about the inflationary pressures that we have today. And it doesn't just stop with the roads. For those of you that get into other aspects of infrastructure, you know, you've got to think about your bridges, you've got to think about your water and wastewater, how that plays into not only your maintenance budget, but your capital expenditures as well. And so all those things combined, on top of the fact that we want our infrastructure to be safe and efficient, all those things are putting pressure on us to try to maintain these assets and get out of this worst first cycle and try to get ahead and create some room for us, some breathing room to where we can be efficient, we can get more out of our budgets and not be constantly having to try to prioritize and pick and choose between all these critical assets that we're trying to maintain. So we've kind of kicked it off here, and we talked about a couple of, you know, some negative things going on. And you're probably thinking, well, man, you know, what are we going to do? I mean, this sounds like a pretty bleak picture. But the good news is there is a solution that exists. Instead of us being stuck in that reactive mindset of worst first, we have an opportunity to take on a proactive approach to how we manage our road infrastructure. And there's really 3 elements in that proactive approach that we can take, and some of which you're probably already doing to a certain extent. But today we're talking mainly about preservation. That's one of the aspects, that proactive or preventative maintenance approach. The next part to it, the second part, is probably where you start to get into what you're doing now. It's that functional maintenance. You know, things like maybe chip seals, or you know, you get into micro surfacing, things of that nature that you're trying to keep your road functional. And then lastly, you get into the structural aspect of it, where you're doing full depth reclamation, and you're dealing with base or sub-base issues as it pertains to your roads. So as we talk about preservation today, I don't want you to think that we're discarding anything. We're just trying to add to the strategy of being proactive, and getting a more efficient balance into how we manage our roads. Again, you're still going to pave, you're still going to do some of these same things you do, but the idea is to push some of those things off down the road, to shift that maintenance curve out several years. And in the process of doing that, be able to save on your maintenance budgets and take some of that money and be able to invest it in other projects. That's that runway I'm talking about that I mentioned previously as a challenge, right, in the slides, and dealing with all these various aspects of infrastructure, whether it's roads, bridges, water, wastewater. We want to be able to create that room within our budget so we can be able to be more flexible in how we invest those maintenance dollars or those CapEx dollars. So again, the approach today that we're talking about is preservation. And the solution is out there. It's a solution that's existed for quite some time. I mean, we're talking 50 plus years of existence, but it's kind of been hidden. It hasn't been talked about a lot. I tell people a lot of times this is the best kept secret really out there when it comes to roadway preservation. It's something that actually works. It actually preserves your roadways. And what's the key to this? What's the key to this solution, and why it's important? And the key is keeping our good roads good for longer, not allowing them to get off that good range. So what do I mean by good range? Think about it in terms of the Pacer scale or the PCI index, which I'm sure many of you may be familiar with. For those that aren't, basically it's a rating system for our roads. The Pacer scale is a 1 to 10 scale. PCI is 1 to 100. So when I'm talking about keeping your roads good for longer or keeping them in that good condition, for the PCI index, we're talking about a range of 80 to 100. For the Pacer scale, we're talking about 8 to 10. So the picture you got before you, that's a road that would meet that range. Think about keeping this road in this condition for an extended number of years, as opposed to maybe what you see now, where you may be doing maintenance on this road 5 years from now. What if you could extend that out and do maintenance on it 10 years from now to get you that extra 5 years? That's what we're talking about when it comes to preservation. It's a brand new road. Yes, it looks great, but it's not going to stay that way on its own. We've got some factors at play underneath the surface, right? So many times we get caught up in just the surface level symptoms that are impacting our roads, whether it's potholes or cracks, and we go and we treat those. But meanwhile, under the surface, we've got something else at play that's hurting us, that's keeping our roads from lasting longer. And when it comes to genuine asphalt preservation, it's the process of restoring the chemical components that have been lost in the hot mix process and that production process, as well as the oxidation factors at play that we all have to experience. And that takes on a different look wherever you are in the world. For some people, it's excessive freeze-thaw cycles. For some people, it's just excessive heat that's at play. But we all are subject to different weather conditions. But again, the process of preservation is restoring those genuine components, those critical components that are natural and native to asphalt. What's the result of that? What's that going to do for us? It's going to keep our roads more flexible. It's going to keep them more weather resistant. And ultimately, it's going to help us get more life out of the road and save us in the long run on our maintenance cost. So what's this key we're talking about, this component? I've kind of hinted at it a little bit in talking about the solution that exists. Well, that key component is Maltene's, and it's part of understanding the makeup of our road, right? I mentioned that we focus on symptoms. We treat the symptoms, the cracks, the potholes. We don't get to the root cause, the root issue of why our roads are deteriorating. So here before you, you've got a picture of some of the different components of asphalt. Obviously, most of asphalt is aggregate, right? About 94% of it's aggregate. That other 6% is composed of asphaltenes and maltenes. So if you look at the center of the screen here, you've got asphaltenes in the middle. Asphaltenes are really what give the pavement its body, its color. Asphaltenes are really not affected by oxidation. They're not really affected by heat. Conversely, we have maltenes as the other component. And maltenes are made up of the other 4 components that you see there. The first and second acidophenes, the hydrocarbons, and polar compounds. And so maltenes, conversely, are affected by oxidation. They are affected by heat. Maltenes are the glue that hold your road together. And that loss of maltenes is significant up front when it comes to your pavement. I mean, we're talking upwards 40 to 50% loss during that production and hot mix process. So out of the gate, that's the deterioration that I'm talking about that's occurring, and why understanding what makes up your roads is key to being able to get the life extension that you desire. So what does this look like from a practical aspect? Here you've got a graph. This is of the PCI scale. If you look at the vertical axis, you've got the rating conditions there, 0 to 100. And then on the horizontal axis, you've got the years in terms of road life. There's really two lines. I know this is a busy graph, but there's really two lines that you need to pay attention to. The first one is the gray line, where you have no treatment whatsoever. That line represents kind of where we are currently when it comes to our approach many times to pavement maintenance. We just kind of let things just take their natural course. That line really represents that worst first mentality. We're just going to let it fall apart and then we'll fix it later. Now, contrast that with the yellow line, where we're talking about preservation treatments. We're talking about a treatment when the road is still good. And we're talking about another treatment down the road to keep that road good for even longer. And so you'll notice the space in between those two lines. And that space represents the opportunity for you to save on your maintenance dollars, not just keeping your road good, but also the financial aspects of that and what that means for your community. And so that's where this ties into your budgets. That's where this starts to become real. People make decisions, based on money, on saving time, on mitigating risk. And this graph is a representation of that. Like I said, the space in between these two lines represents your savings. That's the saving of money that you can reinvest elsewhere in your vital infrastructure. Time, you're extending the time before you have to make a major investment into your roads. And we all know with the inflationary pressures that are present today, that's a major deal. And then there's the risk factor too, right? Maybe maybe your community is in a process of developing and you're trying to get more business in there. You're trying to grow. You're seeing more residents move in. There's a risk if you don't keep your roads in good condition, and how that can impact your community economic development. So again, this is a representation of that here with this graph. Regarding the Minnesota long-term study, we do have a white paper available we can share with you and talk about that more offline for those that are interested. So as we kind of draw to a close here in the last 10 minutes or so before we take Q&A, there's a lot of different technologies out there, a lot of different applications, as Darwin talked about. You'll see a lot of terms like these that come up as you do your homework. And again, I just want to encourage you, please do your due diligence. Please do your homework. Look at the third-party testing that's out there on various technologies that you're considering when it comes to preservation. And furthermore, think about the connotation of preservation versus rejuvenation. When you think about rejuvenation, what images come to mind? You're thinking of restoring something that's fallen apart, bringing it back to life. Contrast that with preservation. When we think about preservation, we're thinking about keeping something in good condition that already is in good condition. And so take that approach as you evaluate products. Again, we won't dive into all these terms, but I just want you to see these so you kind of know what you're looking for and what's out there. So the question is, how do you decide? How do you make a good decision when it comes to selecting a technology for preservation? Well, there's really two key factors that I would submit to you that you need to keep in mind. The first is viscosity, which is talked about a lot, and the second is asphaltene reduction. So first with viscosity, yeah, there's many products on the market, many technologies that will reduce viscosity of your roads. But it's not just about reducing viscosity, it's how you reduce viscosity that's the key factor to keep in mind. If we're just focused on reducing viscosity, period, we can all do that very easily. Just go find you some diesel fuel, take it out to your road and pour it on your road. It'll reduce the viscosity for you really quick. But what happens, you come back a year later, your road's going to be pretty dried out and it's going to be pretty cracked. So that's why I encourage you, don't just trust in viscosity reduction alone. Take a look at what's happening and how viscosity is being reduced by a given technology. That's the first point. The second point, like I mentioned, is asphaltene reduction. Think back to that chemistry slide where we were looking at all the different components of asphalt. There's that balance that we have to keep in mind between asphaltenes and maltenes. And if we can keep asphaltenes lower for longer, that's going to help us extend the life of the road. Again, this is a technology and a discovery that goes all the way back to the 1960s and Dr. Fritz Rossler, who discovered the direct correlation between pavement deterioration and maltene loss. So again, we're trying to keep those maltenes and replace those maltenes and keep that content high so our roads stay more flexible and more weather resistant. We get that longevity we're looking for, which in turn is going to give us a reduction in maintenance costs. So those are the two key data points to keep in mind. I mentioned about doing your homework and your due diligence. There's a couple of third-party tests to look at. With viscosity, the AASHTO T315 test is one to look at. When it comes to when it comes to asphaltenes, the ASTM D2006 is a great test to look at the chemical composition of a core sample. So again, please do your homework. Please do your due diligence and take a look at those two factors when it comes to selecting a technology. So we've talked about Maltene replacement technology in general. So we'll finish on this note with some practical examples. The first of which Darwin mentioned in some of his slides is Reclamite. Reclamite is a technology for roads that are in that good condition already. He mentioned for his clients 90 to 100. Really, Reclamite's a candidate for a road that's in the 80 to 100 range on the PCI scale, or if you're thinking in Pazer, it's 8 to 10. The process for application, as you see here, is pretty straightforward. The product's applied with a distributor truck. The product takes anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes on average to break, or what we call penetrate, into the pavement. And then following that, we apply a dusting of limestone screenings, basically chipped limestone, to the road itself. And all that does is allow you to get traffic back on it. And then the next day, the sweepings are taken care of and swept up by our crew. And so that's Reclamite. That's one example. Another example of Maltene replacement technology. And again, keep in mind, each of these examples is doing the same thing. We're just talking about a different type of application. This one's called JointBond. And it's, as you can tell by the name, it's meant to address the construction joint in the middle of your road, which is one of the most problematic areas when it comes to maintaining your roads. JointBond is typically applied to roads that are 1 to 2 years old, where that construction joint is still in good condition and is not already breaking apart. The process for application, as you can kind of see here, we're only covering like a 2-foot section there. We're overlapping the centerline joint on both sides. This emulsion penetrates very rapidly into the pavement. So within 15 to 20 minutes, we're good to have traffic driving over the top of it. There's no screenings involved in this particular application. And again, this is a process to keep that construction joint in good shape for longer. The last example here is CRF. Now, CRF is a little bit different than the other two products. This product is really reserved for those roads that are older, that are kind of in that middle of the maintenance curve in terms of maintenance, or in terms of performance. When we think about the PCI and Pazer scale, we're talking about 60 to 70 on PCI, 6 to 7 on the Pazer scale when it comes to a road that's a good candidate for CRF. Now, the difference between CRF and the other two products is not only is it replacing the maltenes, but it also has 11% asphalt in it. So again, it's best for roads that are older, and roads where your striping is kind of deteriorating too, because again, it's going to cover over the striping, unlike those other two products. As you can see here, it's applied via a distributor truck, just like the other two products are. It takes the same amount of time typically where it breaks or penetrates, and then we apply the screenings, which once you get the screenings down, you can have traffic moving through. So minimal time in terms of traffic being disrupted, but again, we're keeping the lane open too, as you can see in the middle picture there as well. So what happens once those screenings are applied and traffic is driving over the product, it's actually kneading it into the pavement. It's sealing up your cracks. It's not filling every single crack. This is not a crack filler product, but it's sealing your cracks. And that's important because it's keeping moisture out of your roadways and keeping those cracks from expanding. because what we're trying to do is buy you an additional 5 to 10 years with this application before you have to do a significant maintenance application like a mill and fill or having to do a full depth reclamation. So that's the approach with this product. The screenings are swept up 72 hours later. And again, it's trying to buy you more time with those roads that are kind of in the middle of that maintenance curve. So think about some of your maybe your older county roads or older roads in your city that kind of been an afterthought for a while, and ones that you have block cracking going on or alligator cracking. That's what CRF is meant for. So that's 3 examples for you of some practical applications of Maltene replacement technology. Some current customers we work with, we cover a lot of different states, basically from Minnesota all the way down the Mississippi River, including Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So our goal is to be a resource and try to help these municipalities and counties across these states get more out of their roads. As you can see here, there's definitely a difference when you apply Maltene replacement technology to your roads. Your roads are going to look more uniform. They're going to have less cracking, and you're going to get longer life before you have to do any type of significant maintenance to them. So what's the takeaway here? I hope you've gotten at least one good takeaway from this presentation today. Again, our goal is to be a resource for you, try to enable you to make decisions that are going to help you get more out of the resources you have for your community when it comes to your roads. As I mentioned before, please visit correctiveasphalt.com and you can we can get you a copy of that Minnesota study, that white paper. We've got other white papers and other articles that we can share with you too. So please visit the website. There's some informative videos as well that you'll find there. Again, that's correctiveasphalt.com. But more than that, we welcome the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with you. We love getting to know customers and in cities and counties throughout our territory that we cover, and taking the time to listen and learn about what your specific challenges are, what you've experienced, what actions you've taken, and how that's worked for you, and just seeing if we can plug in and be a resource for you. So definitely reach out to us. We'd love the opportunity to visit with you. And then we also have product demonstrations that we like to do, show you the technology in action. Again, don't take my word for it. Put the product to the test and check it out for yourself and see firsthand. We definitely enjoy the camaraderie of getting out there, working with engineers, public works professionals, and just letting you see the product in action. We've got an entire great team of sales professionals at Corrective Asphalt, as well as our operations teams. As I mentioned, I've got everybody here on the presentation today. You can see their contact information here with their email address. Please feel free to reach out. Again, they're all happy to listen and learn and be a resource for you. We've got a lot of great people on our team that have a tremendous amount of experience in roadway infrastructure. And also Darwin Dahlgren. Again, thank you, Darwin, for joining us today. This is Darwin's contact information. If you have questions about pavement management systems and how to better manage your pavement assets, Darwin is a great resource. Again, he's been a civil engineer for 30 plus years, got a lot of experience when it comes to roadway infrastructure. So now we come to the part where we address your questions. If you've already put some in the chat, we'll begin to go through those. If you think of some, please put them in there. If by chance we do run out of time, we will definitely collect those questions and reach out, and we'd love to have a conversation with you and make sure we get you the answers you're looking for. So with that, Jen, if you can let us know what questions we have in the chat.
We do have a couple questions in the chat. The first one comes from Todd Kinney. Will CRF seal cracks similar to a scrub seal? What is the SY cost?
I would say that yes, it's close to a scrub seal or a chip seal. Again, CRF is not going to fill the cracks. Yes, it will seal them and prevent moisture intrusion. So I'd say if you're looking at comparable applications, yes. In terms of the square yard cost, I mean, it really depends on how many square yards we're talking about. I mean, the cost varies. I mean, on average, it's somewhere around $25,000 a mile, just as a rough average. But again, if you wanted to get a more exact cost representation, we'd be happy to take a look at a section of road for you and give you a really sharp estimate.
Great. The next question actually comes from another individual. Is CRF like flogging light resurfacing?
I mean, yeah,
So
it's
is
similar. Yeah,
it like a fogging or light surfacing? Sorry, I think I said flogging instead of fogging. My bad.
I would describe it as it's thicker than like a fog seal. If you're Shane, if you're referring to like a fog seal, it's a much thicker product than a fog seal. It's definitely going to close up the surface voids, like any of your surface raveling where you've lost some smaller stone or some fines. It fills that in, and then it's going to fill in any of the smaller cracks. So it's definitely much thicker than your typical SS1H fog seal. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, retype another one.
And then here's another one from Kevin Lang. Do you have data to support friction data on the pavement after placing CRF?
Yes, we do. That we can get and we could email you. I don't have it off the top of my hand, but I know that we have friction data on both products or on all the products long term. So we could get that to you, Kevin, if you're interested in us emailing it to you.
Great. I have a couple more questions. Craig Andrews joining us from the UK. How do you ensure the existing surface is sufficiently clean to receive any and all of these treatments, especially those that are cracked?
So yeah, we have capabilities operationally to do pre and post sweeping. And so our crew is trained on how to do that correct surface preparation so that we get a successful application.
Okay. And then we have another one. How does CRF compare to a chip seal for pavement preservation?
Yeah, it's eerily similar. The main difference being that we are replacing Maltene content with CRF, like we mentioned during the presentation. And the other thing too is that we don't have the same effects as like a chip seal. We don't have the that loose stone that's still hanging around that cracks windshields or creates a rough surface profile. CRF is going to give you a smoother surface profile, and it's going to be less costly, less invasive than chip seal.
The other difference between the two products is sometimes with chip seals too, it depends on what state you're in, but sometimes that kicks you into, you're having to redo your ADA ramps because you're adding an actual thickness. With CRF, because it physically soaks into the surface, you're not adding a thickness on top, so you're not having to change any of your ramps or curb lines, anything like that. So it is not adding an actual thickness, it's penetrating the existing surface.
All right. Any other questions? Anyone want to raise a hand for a live question? Jeremy, anything else you and the team want to add for today?
I just want to say thank you again, everybody, for attending. We definitely appreciate you investing time with us. Again, please do reach out. We always welcome a conversation with you. We're here, like I said, to be a resource. We're not here to sell you on anything. We want to see you get the most out of your infrastructure and succeed in doing so. So again, thanks for investing time with us, and we hope to see you out there in the field.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeremy, and the team with Corrective Asphalt Materials. Just a few reminders, your certificates for today's session will be uploaded into the member portal within the next 10 days. And for those of you that don't know, registration is officially open for delegates as well as exhibitors and sponsors for the annual NACE conference in Schaumburg, which is April 14th through 17th. And we do have a couple of NACE Connects already on the calendar for next year. So keep your eyes out in the NACE news for those events. So thank you everybody for joining today. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Jeremy and his team.
We'll be at NACE in 2025, so hope to see you there.
Great. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks.